The recording. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. I'm extremely excited about this guest. He is a Wall Street legend, and I'm just going to read off some of the things from his Amazon bio. Wall Street legend and best-selling author Jim Rogers offers investing insights in economic, political, and social analysis, drawing on lessons and observations from his lifetime in the markets. This dude has seen and done it all in Wall Street, and I can't wait to interview him about his book, Street Smarts: Adventures on the Road and in the Markets. Jim Rogers, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mike, but I make a lot of mistakes, so please understand that.
Well, that's what makes you great at what you do. To go from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm. I think that's the definition of success in the eyes of, I believe it was Einstein.
Well, we can talk about my mistakes. You want to hear about my first wife? Oh, what a mistake that was. Oh,
all right. Was
I
that
made many mistakes?
Well, that makes you wise, and now you're sharing your wisdom with the many, and we honor that, sir. So thank you. But can you give us a quick rundown of how you made a splash in the world of Wall Street?
Well, I didn't know anything about Wall Street. I got a job there by accident and fell in love with it. I thought I was going to go to medical school and law school and business school. I was a confused college student, like many, but then I fell in love with Wall Street because they would pay me to know what was going on in the world, which I realized later was my passion. So I loved it. I didn't consider it a job. I was always looking for new investments and ways to make money all over the world.
And so you know, how many years were you a part of Wall Street? I'm assuming you were there for the 80s, whenever things were crazy, the 87 crash, or tell us a little bit about that journey, because number one, you understood wealth creation, but understanding the markets and then where the markets were going. Right before we hit the record button, we talked about how America is in decline, and that's probably what prompted you to move to Singapore. So, you probably learned a lot about yourself, the world, the markets, and some things scare you quite a bit going into 2024, 2025. Is that right?
Well, a slight correction. I was on Wall Street from 1968 until 1980,
Oh,
which is when I retired because I had a lifelong ambition to see the world. Now, I had a motorcycle and I wanted to go around on the world on a motorcycle. This may sound a little crazy, Mike, but this is what I wanted to do. So I set out to do it. The 80s were the days of the Soviet Union and Red China. So it was pretty absurd, my goal, but I kept knocking on doors. I kept trying to get permission. Finally, I got permission and off I went around the world on my motorcycle and loved it.
man, I'm a motorcycle guy. I did the Jeep across the United States. I got in my Jeep, ride a motorcycle across the world. Now, that is something that I only look at people on YouTube and what they're doing. It looks amazing. Was it everything you hoped it would be?
Well, yeah, with that and more. We didn't have YouTube in those days, but yes, it was everything I dreamed of. Uh, wasn't always easy, but that was part of the excitement and the fun. No, I loved every minute of it. Even the bad. One time I was held hostage for 8 days in the Congo. That wasn't fun, but I survived, learned from it, and I'm still alive.
How did you get out of that? Now, I mean, then your book really fits well with you. Adventures, right? Adventures on the road. That's more so than just about business. How did you get out of the hostage situation?
Well, I was held hostage by the chief of police. It was all very friendly. He was quite civilized. He took us home to dinner. He took us to the nightclubs. As I say, he kept demanding money. Finally, I convinced him we didn't have any more money. He searched the motorcycle. He couldn't find any more money. So he put us on a flat car and sent us out of town. We got run out of town on a rail
That's
after
amazing.
8 days.
So they were friendly. All they wanted, they didn't want your life. They didn't want to hurt you. They just wanted the money. And I've heard that from a few people, by the way.
Well, they didn't put us in jail. They didn't do anything. We stayed in a hotel. And finally, as I say, he took us home to dinner. We met his family, the whole works. And finally, he put us on the flat car and off we went.
So, were you you said you were with another person? Is that right? Was it
I was
another
with
motorcycle?
my then girlfriend. She had never ridden a motorcycle before. Her first trip on a motorcycle was around the world into the Guinness Book of Records. Her first ride, her first ride on a bike.
Are you serious about that? Did it enter the Guinness book?
Yeah,
Did
we're
you
both in the Guinness Book of Records for going around the world on a motorcycle.
Unbelievable, man. So you're the first one to do it?
Well, I'm in the Guinness Book of Records 3 times. I don't know if they know what they're doing, but I've done
Jim,
a few things.
Jim,
A
what are
few
the other
things.
two reasons why you're in the Guinness Book of World Records?
Well, when I was in college, there was a rowing race, and we set the record at a famous regatta, the Henley Regatta. We set the record and won the gold medal. And then the other times I went around the world in a car. Went around the world on a motorcycle. It wasn't enough, so I wanted to go again. But I'd already done it on a bike, so I did it in a special car.
What car?
It was a one-of-a-kind Mercedes. It was it was an SLK with a four-wheel drive and
Did it make it? No issues?
diesel engine. It was special made. I mean, there's not another one in the world, but we made it and we're alive.
Jim. Okay, so I guess you equate your adventure seeking to I mean it's in business and in life, it sounds like. So how does that curiosity lend favor to your business acumen, your wealth creation acumen?
Well, I'm sure that someday my children are going to say, why did you have so many adventures? Why didn't you keep making more money? You know, they want to inherit more money. But I wanted adventure. I grew up in a very small backwoods town. My phone number was 5 in the town where I grew up. That's not a typo. The phone number was 5. So if you grow up in a town where your phone number is 5, Mike, you probably never leave, or you want to see everything. Well, I wanted to see everything, so I did it.
Wow. And so your ability to travel around the world and do what you loved was based off of your financial literacy. I'm assuming you created enough wealth and freedom to get to do that, right? So the money had to come first. Is that right?
Absolutely. I guess I could have hitchhiked around the world, blah, blah, blah. But no, that was not my goal. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to see the world my way. And so I saved some money, earned some money, and then I set off.
Wow.
Twice. I was really crazy.
Now, you probably had a lot of friends and family members saying, stay in Wall Street. That's what you're very good at, right? That's where to make the money. But it seems like it was a means to an end. Maybe you loved Wall Street, but it seems like you became great at it, did what you needed to do, and then went off to do what you really, really wanted to do with your life. Is that right?
I loved every minute of Wall Street, but you're right. People did. One guy said, I said, I'm going to go around the world on a motorcycle. He said, why don't you fly? You have enough money to fly around the world. And then another, people said strange things. So I was introduced to a head of a major bank, and the guy said to him, oh, Jim Rogers went around the world twice. And the bank president said, aren't you sorry you did that? For his life and view, he could not conceive. He spent his whole life working his way to the top of a bank, famous bank, rich guy, but he could not conceive that everybody didn't want to spend their life working their way up at his bank. But my goal, as I say, I'm sure my children will be unhappy someday, but my goal was to see the world.
Jim, I'm reading through the summary of your book. As a result of his extraordinary success with the Quantum Fund, Rogers was able to retire at the age of 37. I'm 39 years old. I couldn't even imagine, retiring, right? So I mean, it's because I truly love what I'm doing, but 37, there you are, completely free. You can do whatever you want. Since then, he has taught classes in finance at Columbia University, hosted television programs, traveled the world, seeing firsthand how the revolutions in Chile affect coffee prices in Seattle, and how shortages of copper in Africa affect electricity brownouts in Ohio. Because of your ability to maybe, I guess, be in touch with individuals in different countries and be there, does it help you become a better investor? Were you able to take some of that knowledge you learned on the road or just being in different countries and actually profit financially or maybe lead people in a certain way simply because of your experiences? What has come from
Well,
that?
well, if you see the world close to the ground, if you see the world from the ground up, you learn a lot, I assure you. For instance, on my earlier trips, I realized, oh my gosh, China's on the rise and China's going to be a great country again. Now, in those days, everybody said Japan, Japan, Japan. And I kept saying, no, China, China, China. Well, I mean, you know the rest of the story. If you don't look out the window, you'll see
Yeah.
China's the great country in the world and Japan's in decline. But that I all saw close to the ground, traveling around China on my motorcycle, etc. So you learn a lot.
Ooh. And I mean, I'm reading all about you. You definitely, they classify you, and it says regarded as one of the most astute investors Wall Street has ever known. What made you different? Was it because you didn't fall into the same BS that a lot of other people fall into? Were you able to kind of have a different perspective? It wasn't the groupthink mentality, the individuality that you have. It just kind of lended favor to your investing success. What was it?
Well, when I got to Wall Street, I assumed everybody knew what they were doing. They were older, they were more educated, etc., more experienced. But pretty quickly, I learned they didn't know any more than I did. These guys didn't have a clue, how to make money. So I realized that I had to do things my way, whatever my way was. And I followed my own instincts, my own path, my own research. And it worked. Who knew? It worked.
Yesterday, I interviewed a guy who he's one of the investors for one of 63 families. Okay. And they're the top 1%, 63 families. So you have to have at least $250 million in assets to actually work with this guy. And he said to me, he goes, and it was very in the same fashion what you just said. Most people in my industry, including myself, we really have no idea what's going to happen. We don't. So what we recommend is you invest like a dead man. Right? What he meant by that is make a decision, invest, and don't even look at it ever again. Because studies show that your emotions get involved. You start to move things around. You might have a win, but then you make another decision because your confidence starts to rise. And then the market hits you and you lose more than if you just left it in there in the first place. So average people who die and are forgotten about make more money than those who are active investors. What's a great piece of advice that you would share with our audience?
Well, there's a certain amount of legitimacy to that. What I much prefer is to find something that's cheap, where there's positive change taking place, but I want to have something I can own for a long time. I'm lazy. If you sell, it takes effort to sell. So I want something I can buy and own for forever would be the perfect time. But I like to find something where the change is going to go on for a long time, like China, for instance. You know, China's China was a disaster when I went to China the first time, and even when I started investing there. But I have never sold any Chinese shares because the country has continued to grow and change.
Hmm.
That's the kind of investment I like. And that doesn't mean it goes up every day or every month, but it does mean the basic trend is up.
Wow. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of people out there trying to preach get rich quick. You're all about get rich for certain, right? Play the long game. And I think that's what makes every entrepreneur successful. The longer their vision, the more patience they have, the more accurate their decisions are. Is that right? It's just all about the long game.
Well, I have learned that if you get rich quick, you're probably going to get poor quick too. So I don't like hot tips. I don't, everybody wants to go to the bar and get a hot tip and get rich next week. Well, I want to be rich next week too, Mike, but I know that hot tips are going to make me very poor very quickly.
Mm. And so people out there who are looking to create wealth, it sounds like you had the entrepreneur mindset and you were able to help other people get wealthy. Another philosophy that we talk about on this podcast is if you want to make money, just figure out a way to make someone else money. And you are going to have the byproduct of success and opportunity and freedom if you serve first. What are some tips? You talked about hot tips you're not a big fan of, but what are some takeaways that you've learned? Maybe two or three nuggets you could go back to your former self and tell that individual about your journey, whether it's patience, getting around the right people, read the right books, play the long game, or don't do X, Y, and Z. What would you say?
Well, my most important point would be only invest in what you yourself know a lot about. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Mike. Stay with what you know. Everybody watching this knows a lot about something, whether it's fashion or cars or something. So stay with what you know. If I told you you could have only 25 investments in your life, Mike, you wouldn't be jumping in and out of things every week. You would be very patient and you would wait until you found something that you know, aha, that's going to be great. And then you would do some more research and you would invest and you'd be very rich someday.
Hmm.
And you know what many people say when I tell them that?
Hmm.
Oh, that's boring. Okay, Mike, if you want to be rich, be boring. Don't
I've
worry
heard that
about
before
being.
too. It's always the boring businesses that make the most money. I have people in my group that they're looking to buy and they call them boring businesses, whether it's in the service based world or, it could just be things that are not sexy. And what's cool about those businesses is that those are evergreen. They're time tested. And usually that's what creates wealth.
So be boring, okay? Be boring and be very rich.
Excellent.
I assure you, if you're very rich and you go down to the restaurant, people are not going to think you're boring. They're going to come over and want to meet you and talk to you and everything else. They don't think you're boring. They know you're very rich and
Oh,
very smart.
yep. Yeah. So if you figure out how to create wealth, you'll always be interesting to somebody. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Well, I want to talk to you. Maybe nobody else will, but I will.
Oh, man. Okay. So that's a great nugget, guys, if you're out there listening. So Jim, we talked a little bit about the decline of America. You were able to see it back in the 80s. I mean, even in the Reagan years, people might have said you were crazy that America is going to decline. It's clear as ever that there is something going on and it is not looking good for us. So when did you see it and what do you see coming down the road slash pike for us?
Well, I don't remember when I saw it, but I have read enough history and seen what's happened to many other countries. Mike, it's happening again. United States. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I don't like because I'm an American voter and taxpayer. But America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. No nation in world history has ever been as indebted as the U.S. is. Now, does that sound good to you? It doesn't to me. And I will tell you that every country that has done this sort of thing has gone into decline. There are no exceptions. If you run up gigantic debts, eventually somebody has to pay the price. Is that good for me or good for America? Of course not. But it's a simple historic fact. One of the big problems of history is most people do not learn the lessons of history. We had a president recently who said, who cares about history? I'm smarter than history. Well, I know I'm not smarter than history. And I know you better pay attention to history. You're going to suffer.
Yep. Yeah, we were talking about the Roman Empire. It's not just the Roman Empire, but the moment somebody turns on that printing machine, to get them to stop is almost impossible. Right? So
Not almost impossible,
it
Mike.
is.
It is impossible. If you went in there and shot them in the head, their assistant would turn on the printing press as fast as she could or as fast as he could. No,
Uh,
no.
so what do
Nobody
you
wants to.
what do you think is going to happen over the next decade? Do you think that it's just going to keep getting worse and worse? The dollar's going to decrease. The BRICS is going to start to pop up as more of a significant currency. What would you say?
Well, I will say that the world is looking for an alternative, a competitor to the dollar for many reasons, including the fact that have gigantic debts. But Washington has also started cutting people off. I mean, if Washington gets angry at you, they'll say, oh, you cannot use the dollar anymore. Mike, the world's international currency is supposed to be a neutral currency that anybody can use for anything. But Washington has changed those rules. And people are getting worried. Even our friends are starting to say, wait a minute, they could do that to us. We're their friends, but they could still cut us off. And it's happened. So many people are now looking for, forced by Washington, to look for an alternative to the US dollar. And history shows they will find it. I don't know what it is yet. I wish I did. If you know, please don't announce it. Send me an email. I'm looking for what the new competitor is. But Washington insists that people have to find another currency because Washington is going to cut them off if Washington gets angry.
Mm, yeah. And I think you talk about this in your book quite a bit, but tomorrow's economy will be driven by those who make things, food, energy, goods, and consumables. Doesn't seem like America is known for creating a lot of that right now. So you basically you're in Singapore right now. But just look at the countries creating all that. That's where you are going to see growth for the next 15, 20, 25 years. Pretty scary because America, with everything that's happening, I mean, US Steel was just bought by Nippon Steel or Nippon Steel. Everything America is known for seems to be declining. And so certain countries are taking the helm. Is that right?
Well, yes, except one slight correction. They were trying, Nippon and US Steel agreed to merge, but Washington says you cannot do it. And, many people say, wait a minute, I thought this was a free market. I thought this was a capitalist country. But Washington says, nope, you cannot merge with Nippon with US Steel.
Oh, they did stop it? I have not heard about that. Interesting.
Oh, they have stopped it, but I mean, as I said, I will say that America might be in decline. That's part of the reason. Washington bureaucrats think they're smarter than you. They think they're smarter than the market.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought it was a pretty much done deal, and I have no faith in this administration. So,
It was a done deal, Mike. Both sides agreed. The shareholders agreed. Some bureaucrat in Washington says, nope, you cannot do it. I'm a bureaucrat and you cannot do it.
the all-knowing wizard, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
They have
yes.
never created a dollar in their life. They have never created wealth, yet they still have a say-so. It's just unbelievable to me.
And they certainly tax your dollars that you make.
So, and we'll just touch on politics, but 2024, do you have any predictions when it comes to whether it's, Trump or Biden? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are your thoughts on what the future looks like?
My prediction is that we will have an election in November. And if we don't, it's worse than I thought. Oh my gosh, it's worse than I thought. No, we will have an election. The one thing that I have learned from history is that whoever's in the lead at this stage usually does not win. That's not a prediction. I'm just telling you historically, if you're in the lead in February or March, you probably are not going to win, according to history. Remember Hillary Clinton?
Yep.
She ain't president, even though,
Oh, I know that.
even though for a long time everybody knew she would be president. So I don't have a prediction except that somebody's going to be elected, and I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know. I know what the polls say, but I know that the polls at this stage usually don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So you don't seem like your emotions get involved with things you can't control. You can control only certain aspects, and that's what you focus on, right? That's it.
Well, I try to control my emotions. I've learned that getting over emotional can lead to mistakes.
Mm. So, the the success in business and Wall Street, you retired at 37. Was there any want to get back into it? Did you kind of just play around with, investing? I'm sure you still are in tune with the markets, but what happened since 37 till now? Are you able to did you just start to teach? Did you kind of complete the hero's journey and help other people become better at investors? What was that journey like?
At one point, I spent some time as a professor because it turned out I liked it. It was fun, but I still have to look at the markets. I mean, I got to pay my bills, Mike. You're not going to pay my bills. I assure you, being on your show doesn't pay my bills. So no, I have to be aware of the markets, not nearly as active as I used to be, but I still love, it's a fascinating game.
You're still looking. You still watch it, I guess, but you're just not, I guess, making as big as moves, right? The risk tolerance probably has changed.
Well, yes, that's a good way to put it. I don't think I'm going to lose everything in a week.
And you talked a little bit about stay boring, right? Crypto. Do you have any interest or want or need to get into that at all?
Well, I do know about crypto. Many cryptos have disappeared and gone to zero. In my view, they all will go to zero eventually. But if you're a good trader, they seem to be good trading vehicles. So why not? I have nothing against people trading. I don't think it's ever going to be money. I cannot imagine that the US government is going to say, okay, guys, this is money now. But if you want to use that money over there, you can use their money. That's not the way Washington thinks. Washington is going to demand a monopoly and control. I don't like that, but I'm not Washington.
That's the history. Now you make most of your money, if not all your money, in through the markets, right? And so, outside of that, do you have other plans? Are you in real estate? Do you have other vehicles? Do you buy businesses? What is your what's your strategy?
Well, I'm lazy. I know about the market a little bit, and so I invest in markets around the world and try to make a little money. But
Got
I
it.
invest in stocks and bonds, currencies, commodities, everything.
Got it. And so, people out there who are, I guess similar to you, how would they get started in that? I mean, pretty much you could just I wouldn't recommend Robinhood as one of the platforms, but anybody can do what you do. Where do you look for research? Do you pay attention to the K-12 reports or, like how do you do your research? What's your schedule look like? If you could kind of share that, would be very valuable.
I don't know what the K-12 reports are.
Oh, it's basically like quarterlies, I guess. I think they call it the
Okay, doesn't
K-12s.
matter. Don't tell me. I might try to find out. And I'm quite happy not knowing about. No,
K1s, maybe I'm thinking of the quarterlies.
the K1s, yes, yeah, that's important. The 10Ks and the yeah,
The
K1s.
10Ks, I think that's probably what I'm thinking of, right? So I used to
The
do all this stuff in
10K,
school. I haven't done it in a long time. I got into publishing and real estate. So I don't do a lot of Wall Street or a lot of investing in the market. So it's sort of like back in my former life, if you will.
let me say again, do what you know. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Don't go down to the bar and get a hot tip. Stay with what you know and know a lot about. So that's what I try to do. I read the newspapers, I go on the internet, I try to know what's going on in the world. And if I see something that I think might be interesting or lead to something interesting, I pursue it.
Got it.
But I don't have an answer. I don't have, oh, Mike, look on page 37 and you'll see the answer. There is no page 37. If there is, I don't know where it is.
So
And I don't know which
you're
book it's in.
you're basically going off of gut instincts, curiosity, and multiple sources, right? And once you have a great feeling or basis of understanding or an expertise level at a certain degree, you feel confident in moving some resources into that position. That's all.
Well, research. I do the research. I hope I'm smart enough to do the research and find out what reality is and then invest. Gut instincts are wonderful, but they're not a good way to make money, not for me.
Got it.
Research and know what's happening is a better way.
Now, it looks like you're a guy who loves history. I'm looking behind you. You got baseballs. It almost looks like you have Jesse James back there. I don't know who that is. What's that? Who's that picture of behind
The
you?
one with the boat, the tie, and the
Yeah,
beard.
yeah.
That's my great grandfather.
Great grandfather. Very nice. Okay. Looks like
Yes,
Jesse
yes.
James, by the way, just so you know. But
I
you know,
wish Jesse James were my great grandfather, but he wasn't.
you have a
I'm
lot of
sure I
cool
would have inherited a lot more money if Jesse James had been my grandfather.
you would have history on your side. You can monetize that 1,000 different ways, right?
Right, but I'm afraid I never knew Mr. James.
You have a lot of cool stuff. You've done a lot of, you have a lot of cool stuff. I mean, you've done a lot of cool stuff. Is there anything that really stands out in your life as something that you'll never forget, whether it's meeting a certain individual or an experience that really, maybe brings tears to your eyes to this day, or maybe there's something in your house that you just love looking at you'd like to share with us?
You want to hear about my old girlfriends? They all bring
Yeah.
it. They all bring a tear to my eye, for goodness
Especially
sakes.
the ones that divorced you and got the money, right? Those are the
Ah, you want to hear about my first wife? What a horrible mistake that was. Uh, thank goodness. Thank goodness she's gone. Uh, no, I mean, I look back on my life, I guess there's nothing I would really, I don't have regrets or something. I'm going to say something, but be sure you understand. If there's anything I might have done different, I might have moved to Asia sooner because I saw in the 80s what was happening. I went back to New York and had a fantastic life. Don't get me wrong, went around the world twice, etc. But if I would not regret it, I don't think, if I had moved to Asia or China in the 80s, because I could see what was happening. And if I had done that, I might be really rich.
wow. Yeah, I guess Singapore, you could have gone anywhere, but maybe there's more wealth being created there than anywhere else. But you can pretty much run your business from online now. So why Singapore?
Well, when I went back to the US after seeing a bit of the world, I would tell everybody to teach your children and grandchildren Chinese because China is going to be the next great country in the world. One day, my daughter came home from the park. She was 4 or 5 years old in New York and crying because everybody laughed. They spoke Spanish and she spoke Chinese. They laughed at her because she spoke Chinese and didn't speak Spanish. So I knew if I was serious about making her learn Chinese, I had to move to a Chinese speaking city. Singapore is a remarkably well-run country. They speak English and Chinese. I don't speak Chinese, so we came here. It's a phenomenally successful country over the past 50 or 60 years, and we're quite keen. My kids both speak the best Chinese in Singapore, so it's been successful.
Wow, what a difference in culture too. I would think that from what I've read, they have incredible core values, right? There's a family structure there. What is the biggest difference that you've noticed? It's safer, I think, way safer. But
Oh
what do you see?
oh my God, it's safer. Certainly, if I could put my 16-year-old daughter in a taxi and send her anywhere in town and not worry about it. No, it's very safe. I guess the first thing we noticed was how demanding and advanced and rigorous the schools are. It's much more rigorous than anything I ever experienced when I was a kid. Lots of homework, lots of advanced education, and it's phenomenal. When children all over the world take the international test, Singapore is always on top. And that's because they work their heads off in Singapore. It's the same as Korea, Japan, or China, or other countries here. They make you work, and they have advanced education. It's not easy stuff. They don't pass you just because you show up. You got to work and do it.
Wow. Now I'm looking at your list of books. There are many. And so, guys, if you want to look at some of his books, they have hundreds and hundreds of reviews. The one that really caught my eye, I can't believe I didn't bring this up earlier, but I'm going to read this or listen to it. Investment Biker. All right. What an awesome name, Jim. You have Hot Commodities, Adventure Capitalist. Is there one book, oh, A Gift to My Children, Father's Lessons for Life and Investing? Is there any book that stands above the rest as, the most meaningful or one that people should check out today?
Well, that's like you asked me which child is the best child. How can one say that?
You got a
Uh,
favorite. I don't care what you say. You got a favorite. There's one. Every
well,
every
if
parent
if
has a favorite, I think.
if I have a favorite book, I don't know it. I mean, I would say Investment Biker because it was the first, but the subsequent books have been wonderful pleasures, wonderful joys, and it's the basis of those books, my trips around the world or whatever, have been phenomenal. So I'm sorry if I have a favorite, I'm not smart enough to know what it is.
Jim, if there's one thing I've caught from this interview is that you are extremely humble, right? You've been through a lot, you've done a lot, you've created a lot of wealth, yet you still stay humble. What is one thing you
Well,
want to be known for when it's all said and done 100 years from now? What do you want them to say about you?
well, I guess the main thing, many parents would say this, is my kids. I want my kids to be successful and happy people and go forward and do whatever they love and be successful at it.
And so that adventure spirit, do you still do you have anything you still do to this day? Do you travel anywhere? How do you keep that adventure spirit alive?
No, I certainly travel. I go a lot of places, and if you call me up and say, "Oh my gosh, let's go to Uzbekistan," I'd get on the next plane. In fact, I'm thinking about going to Uzbekistan. I've been to Uzbekistan before, but I want to go again. No, there's still places in the world I want to see, some of which I've seen before, some of which I want to see again.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like you've been a part of many books with some big players too. And man, there's a few that I got to look up now. You're an interesting guy. Jim, is there a website or a social media channel that people can find you on or communicate with you directly? Are you on social media?
No, I don't think so. If I'm on social media, I don't know it. Well, it used to be, we found imposters, people who would say it was Jim Rogers. At one point, there were I had 5 or 6 websites. My lawyer tracked them all down. They were all imposters, claiming to be Jim Rogers. I hope those are all gone now, but no, I don't have. Sorry, Mike. I'm a pretty simple person.
How
Uh,
about how about one last question for you, Jim? Outside of your books, is there one that maybe you recommend to our audience above all else? Maybe a book that you read when you were a kid, or maybe something you just read recently. Anything that is significant to you. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book that changed my life, so I always recommend that to somebody. But is there one that stands out in your life as, hey, this is a must read, guys?
well, uh, I would say the first investment book I read, which had a profound effect, was called The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham. I mean, this is going back 50 or 60 years, but I was most impressed, partly because I didn't know anything. And this guy was a smart guy, and everything it said in that book made sense. So I guess I would say read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. It's an old book, but he had a lot of wisdom, and he's still known on Wall Street as a smart guy.
Wow. Yeah, the legend in our circles and the people I look up to always talk about Ray Dalio's books. And, his books are very, very well put together, extremely in depth. But as Ray Dalio, you a big fan of Ray Dalio?
Well, I have met Ray and I've read some of his stuff, and I think I've always been impressed positively, not negatively yet. No, I think everything I know about Ray is positive,
Beautiful.
but I
Man,
don't know everything. I don't know everything. But I'd say what I know, I've been impressed.
wow. The Intelligent Investor. I got to check that out by Ben Graham, guys. Well, Jim, I don't want to hold you. I know it's late. I think it's 10:30 or is it 10:40 at night, right? In Singapore? Somewhere in there?
Well, of course, it's nighttime here. I mean, look out the window. It's 10:42
It's
at
10:42
night.
in the morning here. So you're 12 hours. All right. So go get some
Yeah.
sleep, man. I appreciate you so much for being here. And it is not every day that we have a Wall Street legend who rides motorcycles around the world and is in the Guinness Book of World Records 3 times. So thanks so much for being here, sir.
Well, thank you, but I got to go to the disco, Mike. Good night.
Man,
Good
man, the
night.
energy never dies. I like it. So
Good
thanks,
night. See
Jim.
you another time, I hope. Thank
Remember,
you.
guys,
Thank you.
a
Thank
million
you.
dollar book will lead to $1 million life. Right on.